This is Laura GB, and in this video we're going to look at a heat map grid using the Charticulator visual. So here we are in Power BI. I've already added the custom visual for Charticulator using the three ellipses at the bottom of visuals. And I've already loaded my data. So I've got a calendar and my fact table is the weather in a little place called Camborne down in Cornwall. So what we're going to do, the visual we're going to create is this heat map. We've got decades down the y-axis and we've got months across the x-axis. So let's build this visual. We start by clicking on the Charticulator visual and let's drag it into the middle here and make it a little bit bigger. So the data we're going to add, I am going to add in decade, my rows. I'm going to add in month name for the columns in the grid. And I'm going to base this off the max temperature. So make sure all of those are in the data section. And then we're going to click on the three dots and click edit. And then I'm going to click on create chart. So here we are in the Charticulator visual. We're going to make a grid. So the shapes inside that grid are going to be squares or rectangles. So the mark that's up here, I am going to click and I'm going to drag that into the glyph area. And there we are, we've got a column for every single row of data. Okay, I've got 4 decades and 12 months per year. So there's 48 columns there. But what we're going to do is we're going to click into this plot area. And I don't want columns, so we're going to go to the stack. It says stack X. And we're going to change that to say grid. And there we are, we get a little square for each of our rows of data. So let's colour in those squares next. So if we look down in the layers, we click on the shape, so that bit's highlighted. And then further down in the attributes, let's minimise general for a second. There we are, style, and there's a fill. And we're going to click on the link button. And we're going to click on maximum temperature. Now, it doesn't matter about the average because this is once per row of data. So average, max, min, they're all going to give me the same number. And then it asks you, because it's a number field, it asks you what's the colour range you'd like to go for. And it comes up with black and white. But as it's temperature, let's go for the red-blue one. Okay, so that red is the warmer temperatures, blue, dark blue is the coolest temperature. And there's a button here as well to add a legend. And there we are, it puts a legend in on our chart. If I click away from there, we'll see we get some scales here. And should you need to get back to those colours, we can click on Shape 1 Fill. And that brings it back up. Okay. So that legend doesn't quite need that much space. I'm just going to move this line up here across a bit. Not quite that close, Laura. There we go. Right, so we've now got those squares. We have no idea of the order of those squares. So let's put in some things onto the axes. So if you remember, we had a decade on the y-axis. So I click on decade and I drag it across the screen and I drop it onto the y-axis. And there we are. We've got the decades there. Let's move that guide in a little bit so we can see the years. But we've got the 12 values, the 12 little squares to go with each decade, but we don't know which month is which. So let's bring in the month name and put it on the x-axis. And let's just move that one up as well, just so the text fits on the page. There we go. But the classic, the months are sorted alphabetically rather than numerically. I set up my calendar right, okay? So I have said month name should be sorted by month number. But inside Charticulator, it hasn't got that month number and it's doing its own processing. It's not quite the same as other visuals. So as soon as I come over to here and I add in my month number, it resorts them and January comes first. Now, one last little thing we're going to do to this chart is I'm just going to get rid of those lines and those little tick marks because I think they remove from the nice cleanness of the visual. So we click in the plot segment because that's where the axes are. Let's minimize the glyph so we've got a little bit more space to see the attributes. And if we look under the x-axis, we can scroll down here and we can see there's a show tick line. I can take that off. And I can also take off the show baseline. You probably don't need that either. And then I'm going to minimize the x-axis. And there we are. There's the y-axis. And I can do exactly the same thing. Remove the tick line and remove the baseline. And there we are. A bit of a cleaner. So let's go back to our report. And it's going to ask you if you want to save. And so there we are. We've got our little heat map. Okay. And we also need to change the title. So there we go. There is my Charticulator video on creating a temperature heat map. If you haven't already, please press subscribe. Take care now.